The church bells tolled softly as I stood at my mother's casket, my heart breaking not just from grief, but from the betrayal unfolding before me. My sister-in-law Sophia's voice cut through the somber silence like a knife. "Since we're all gathered here," she announced, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "James wants everyone to know he's found true happiness with Amanda. They don't need marriage papers or legal complications." The gathered mourners gasped. My husband James, standing next to his mistress Amanda, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just smirked, his hand resting possessively on her waist. I remained silent, tears falling freely now, not for him, but for my mother who warned me about James just weeks before she passed. My name is Elizabeth, and at 34, I never imagined I'd be burying my mother and losing my husband on the same day. But perhaps I should start from the beginning, from the moment I first suspected something was wrong. 3 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. During one of her lucid moments in the hospital, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "The church cameras, Elizabeth. Check the security footage. James, Sophia, they're planning something." I dismissed her words as medication-induced paranoia. James had been distant, yes, but I attributed it to stress. He'd been working late, taking mysterious calls, and spending more time with his sister Sophia. I was too focused on my mother's deteriorating health to question it deeply, but Mom kept insisting. "Promise me you'll check," she pleaded. Even in her final days, she was trying to protect me, so I promised, more to ease her mind than anything else. The night before the funeral, I couldn't sleep. My mother's words haunted me. At 2 a.m., I drove to the church where she'd been a devoted member for 30 years. Father Michael, who'd known my mother for decades, was still awake, preparing for the service. "Elizabeth," he said, his face etched with concern. "I was going to call you tomorrow. There's something you should see." He led me to his office and pulled up the security footage from the past month. My hands trembled as I watched the scenes unfold on his computer screen. There was James meeting with Sophia and a blonde woman, Amanda, in the church garden late at night. Their voices were clear through the high-quality audio system my mother had helped the church install last year. "Everything's arranged," Sophia was saying. "We'll announce it at the funeral. Elizabeth will be too devastated about her mother to make a scene, and since there's no marriage registration or proper documentation, she can't claim anything." James laughed. "Perfect timing. She's been so distracted with her dying mother, she hasn't even noticed I've moved most of my assets. Amanda and I can start fresh, no legal ties, no messy divorce." Amanda's voice was sickeningly sweet. "What about the house? It's in both their names, isn't it?" "Don't worry," Sophia assured her. "I've got a plan for that too. By the time Elizabeth realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." I watched multiple meetings, each one revealing more of their calculated plan. They'd chosen my mother's funeral as the perfect moment to humiliate me, believing my grief would render me powerless to respond. Father Michael placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your mother noticed them meeting here. She couldn't prove anything, but she knew something was wrong. That's why she insisted on upgrading the security system last month. She wanted to protect you, even after she was gone." I sat there, numb with shock, but also filled with a strange sense of calm. My mother, even in her final weeks, had been working to expose their betrayal. She'd known somehow and had laid the groundwork for me to discover the truth. "I've saved copies of everything," Father Michael said quietly. "Your mother made me promise to keep them safe. She also left something else for you." He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. My mother's handwriting, shaky but determined, filled the page. "My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, my suspicions were right. I've watched James and Sophia plotting in our church, desecrating this sacred space with their schemes. But darling, I've made sure you're protected. The USB contains account statements, property deeds, and other documents you'll need. I've also recorded conversations I overheard between them when they visited me in the hospital, thinking I was too medicated to understand. Don't let them see you break. You're stronger than they know. When they make their move, remember, I've given you everything you need to fight back. All my love." Mom, Father Michael helped me review the contents of the USB drive. My mother, despite her illness, had meticulously documented everything. She even hired a private investigator to track James' financial movements over the past 6 months. So now, standing at her funeral, watching Sophia's dramatic announcement, I felt my mother's strength flowing through me. James thought he timed this perfectly, announcing his betrayal when I was at my lowest point. He thought my grief would silence me. But my mother, my brilliant, forward-thinking mother, had ensured I wouldn't face this alone. As Sophia finished her announcement, I wiped my tears and straightened my shoulders. The security cameras were still recording, capturing every moment of their cruelty. James stepped forward, probably expecting me to crumble. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice patronizing, "I hope you understand. These things happen." I really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. He had no idea what was coming. My mother's last gift to me wasn't just evidence. It was the strength to stand up for myself. "Yes, James," I replied softly. "These things do happen. And sometimes they're caught on camera." His smile faltered just slightly, but enough to let me know my words had hit their mark. Sophia's triumphant expression wavered. But this was just the beginning. My mother had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemies think they've won, right before you show them how badly they've lost. After the funeral, I maintained my composure as mourners offered their condolences, many avoiding eye contact after Sophia's shocking announcement. James and Amanda had already left, probably to celebrate their victory, while Sophia lingered, watching me with a smug smile. Back at my mother's house, I sat in her study, surrounded by the familiar scent of her perfume and decades of memories. The USB drive from my mother contained more than just security footage. There were detailed financial records, emails she'd intercepted between James and Sophia, and most importantly, a document that made my heart stop, proof that James had forged my signature on property transfer papers. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "I'll send someone to pack my things tomorrow. Don't make this difficult." I smiled, thinking about the cameras I'd installed throughout our house last week, following the trail of breadcrumbs my mother had left me. Sure enough, the footage showed James and Sophia entering our home multiple times while I was at the hospital, removing documents and valuables, discussing their plans in detail. The best part, Sophia had said in one recording, is that she doesn't even know the house is practically empty. We've been moving things out for weeks. James had laughed. "Elizabeth's too trusting. She never even checked the safe or the accounts. Amanda and I can start fresh, and she'll have nothing." What they didn't know was that my mother had already helped me secure the most important things. 3 weeks before she passed, she'd insisted I move all my important documents and family heirlooms to her house. "Just in case," she'd said with a knowing look. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Father Michael. "Elizabeth," he said gently, "there's something else your mother wanted you to know." He handed me another envelope. "She made me promise to give this to you after the funeral." Inside was a letter from my mother's lawyer, dated just 2 weeks ago. My hands trembled as I read it. My mother had transferred her house and considerable assets into a trust in my name, with explicit instructions that neither James nor his family could ever access it. "Your mother was a brilliant woman," Father Michael said. "She knew James would try to take everything, so she made sure you had a safe haven." I nodded, tears flowing freely now. Even in her final days, my mother had been protecting me, setting up a safety net I didn't even know I needed. The next morning, James arrived with Amanda and Sophia, pulling up in a moving truck. I watched through the window as they strutted up to the front door, clearly expecting to find me broken and defeated. "Elizabeth," James called out as they entered, "we're here for my things. Don't make this dramatic." I stepped out of the kitchen, calm and collected. "Of course not. But before you start, there's something you should see." I led them to the living room where I'd set up a large TV screen. Without a word, I pressed play. Their faces paled as they watched themselves on the security footage, discussing their plans in detail, laughing about deceiving me, plotting to strip me of everything. "You recorded us?" Sophia sputtered, her confidence cracking. "Actually, my mother did," I replied. "The church's security system, remember? The one she insisted on upgrading. She heard your late-night meetings, saw everything you planned." James stepped forward, his face darkening. "Those recordings won't hold up. There's no marriage registration, no proper documentation. You can't prove anything." I smiled, thinking of my mother's foresight. "That's where you're wrong, James. Let me show you something else." I played the footage from our house cameras, showing him and Sophia removing items, forging documents. Then I pulled out the file my mother's lawyer had prepared. "Forging my signature on property transfers? That's a serious crime," I said, watching their faces drain of color. And there's more. Every late-night meeting, every fraudulent document, every conspiracy between you three, it's all documented. Amanda started backing away from James, her confident facade crumbling. You said this would be simple. She hissed at him. You said she wouldn't fight back. They never thought I would, I said quietly. That's why they chose my mother's funeral to make their announcement. They thought grief would make me weak. Sophia tried to regain control. You're bluffing. You can't prove any of this. I turned to her, feeling a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Would you like to explain to the police why you're on camera discussing how to defraud me? Or should we start with the forged documents? James's face had turned ashen. He knew I had him cornered. My mother hadn't just left me evidence, she left me the power to destroy their carefully constructed plan. Get out, I said calmly. All of you. My lawyer will be in touch about the stolen property and forged documents. Standing in the doorway of my mother's house. My house now. I watched them retreat, their grand scheme crumbling around them. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. Never let them see you break, darling. Show them what you're made of. And that's exactly what I intended to do. 3 months after the funeral, I sat in my lawyer's office, watching James and Sophia squirm as the evidence mounted against them. The police investigation had uncovered even more than my mother's recordings. Bank transfers, forged documents, and a trail of premeditated fraud that spanned months. Amanda had already turned on them, providing a detailed statement about their plans in exchange for immunity. She'd revealed how James had promised her a luxurious life with my assets, how Sophia had orchestrated the timing of their announcement to cause maximum humiliation. Your mother, my lawyer said, sliding another document across the desk, was thorough in her documentation. She even recorded their conversations during her hospital stays when they thought she was sedated. The recordings were damning. James and Sophia, discussing their plans to side my dying mother's bed, not realizing she was alert and recording everything on her phone. Their cruelty had been their undoing. James attempted one last manipulation. Elizabeth, he pleaded, we can work this out. Think about our history together. I thought about our history all right, how he'd planned to leave me destitute, how he conspired with his sister to humiliate me at my mother's funeral, how they'd laughed about my trust and grief. The only thing we're working out, I replied calmly, is how much you'll be paying in restitution. Sophia, her designer outfit now wrinkled from stress, attempted to intervene. This is ridiculous. We're family. Family? I turned to her. Family doesn't plot to steal someone's home. Family doesn't use a mother's funeral to hurt her daughter. You're not family, you're criminals. The evidence was irrefutable. James faced charges for fraud and forgery. Sophia was implicated in conspiracy and theft. Their carefully constructed plan had crumbled, leaving them facing serious legal consequences. My mother's house became my sanctuary as I rebuilt my life. I discovered she left me more than just evidence. She left me a legacy of strength. The trust she'd set up protected not just her assets, but also contained letters of encouragement, advice, and love. Remember, she'd written, sometimes people show you who they really are. Believe them the first time, but be smarter than they expect. One evening, as I sorted through old photos in the study, I found a final note from her. Dearest Elizabeth, by now you've probably faced their betrayal head-on. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you from their cruelty, but I could prepare you for it. You're stronger than James or Sophia ever imagined. Their mistake was underestimating you and me. I've watched you grow into an amazing woman. Don't let their actions dim your light. Sometimes losing people who betray us is actually a gain. You're free now, darling. Build the life you deserve. All my love, Mom. 6 months later, I stood in my mother's garden, now blooming with the roses she loved. James and Sophia had both taken plea deals, avoiding jail time but facing significant financial penalties and probation. Amanda had moved to another state, her dreams of luxury destroyed by her own testimony. Father Michael visited occasionally, bringing updates from the church community and sharing stories about my mother. She would be proud, he said one afternoon, not just of how you handled everything, but of who you've become because of it. I transformed my mother's house into a sanctuary for women escaping difficult situations, honoring her memory by helping others find their strength. The security cameras that had caught James and Sophia's betrayal now protected women rebuilding their lives. Last week, I received a letter from Sophia. She was apologizing, claiming she regretted everything. I placed it unopened in a box with James's similar attempts at reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. My mother's last gift hadn't just been the evidence to fight back, it had been the wisdom to know my worth. She taught me that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the most profound freedom. Standing in her garden, surrounded by the blooming life she planted, I felt at peace. James and Sophia had thought they could break me by choosing my darkest moment to strike. Instead, they'd unleash a strength they never knew I possessed. A strength my mother had always seen in me, had carefully nurtured, and had protected even from beyond. In trying to destroy me, they'd actually set me free. And that, perhaps, was the greatest justice of all. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in the evening breeze. See, darling, sometimes the best revenge is living well. And that's exactly what I intended to do, live well, help others, and honor the incredible woman who taught me that true strength often comes disguised as betrayal. The security cameras still recorded, but now they captured stories of healing and hope. My mother would have liked that, turning instruments of protection into tools of transformation. In the end, her legacy wasn't just about surviving betrayal, it was about thriving despite it.